Hey there, you're listening to the Scale to Sell podcast, the business owner's podcast to grow and exit your business, where we share with entrepreneurs like you the tactical and practical things you can do to scale your business and create an exit strategy that works for your retirement plan. I'm Adam Burton, part of the father-son duo behind Scale to Sell. I'm an attorney with marketing and business development experience, and I'm joined by my dad, Steve. He's an entrepreneur himself and a financial advisor who's been in the financial services industry for over 2 decades. His expertise securing his clients' retirement income and his experience owning and operating businesses gives him unique insight into what it takes for business owners to scale and sell their business successfully. This is episode number 3, What's Your Company Worth? So one of the big questions that we often get asked is, what's my company worth? And it makes sense. It's an important question, foundational for a number of issues, and it's one that as financial advisors like yourself, Steve, this is an important question for you to understand as well. Why is it such a big deal that business owners are able to have the clarity around how much their business is actually worth?
A variety of things. One of the stats that jumps out at me all the time, we talk about how 80% of all businesses don't sell, but also for 80% of small business owners, their net worth, 80% of their net worth is tied up in the value of that business. So at some point in time, if you're going to exit the business, want to retire, it's good to know your numbers. One, to know what the business is worth, what the market tells you, not a guesstimate, but really what it's worth, so you can see if you're building value in the business, making it more profitable along the journey between now and exit, and or if something happens to you, make sure the business is in good order. But it's just an asset. It's your largest asset. You can't look it up like a 401k or your Social Security statement. So it's just an important number to know.
It's an important number, but as you were just alluding there, it can be a difficult number to know just off the top of your head. How much is that worth, right? Sometimes you've got business owners that you talk to and they have an overinflated or maybe an underinflated view of what that number looks like because they don't have real clarity on the transferable value of their business. And the problem with that, compared to some other industries or different areas that we could look at, there isn't the same kind of open access to the same information to truly get a good, accurate representation of what that's like. So, for instance, my wife and I bought a house a few years ago, and you just asked us recently, Steve, how our house had appreciated, right? And so you're like, let's look it up on Redfin, on Zillow, on those different sites and do a little comparison of what people in the market are estimating the house property to do. But you don't really have that, do you, with the business side of things?
No, there's a million different ways anymore. It's easy to go on Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com and pull up the comparables to your house. 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, whatever the number is in your area. It's easy to pull up that estimate. It's not as easy as with a business. And I've seen it. You mentioned you can either undervalue or overvalue a business. I have recent examples of both. Somebody was getting ready to sell a business he bought in the late 1980s. It had done quite well for him and his partner, looking to exit. And one of their financial advisor ran it through some generic software they had at work. And talking to our M&A team, our mergers and acquisitions team, found out that valuation was probably well over $1 million higher than what the industry really says it is. In another case, we had a client that's going to sell the business internally and looks like he's going to get about $1.2 million, $1.3 million more than what it was because of the original estimate being off.
Yeah, and so being able to have that accurate representation of what you're going to be able to walk away from it with and how that's going to impact your next stage of life and all of that is a really big deal. And it's why you need someone who has the resources and the skills to be able to give you that clear picture of what it's actually worth. But one of the problems that we often see is that it can be difficult to get a good estimate because there's such a wide range of things when it comes to the multiples, right? We hear people all the time, I could get 2x or 4x or 10x or whatever for what the business makes, the revenue and whatever. Why is that such a challenging thing to understand And what is it about that conversation that's important for business owners to understand?
Well, there's generic rules of thumb, with, say it's a plumbing and heating company. And I've read this in an article that my business is worth this, but it has a wide range because you can be best in class, which demands a high multiple. You can be average, or you could be worst in class or not as good. And the multiples can vary just by doubling, tripling what you might get out of the business in many cases. And sometimes knowing that number and knowing where your weaknesses are, how to make it look better, more attractive. And again, as I always say, even if your exit from the business is down the road, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, you need to know these numbers right now, because if you can't measure what the business is worth, then how do you know what's the weaknesses, what's the strengths, how to build off the strengths? So it's a number you always want to know, but it's things that people put off until they go to exit, or they have to finance something or get some insurance or whatever the reason might be. But it's a number I think you should have a estimate of value done on your business routinely, maybe not every year, but maybe every couple years at least.
Yeah, that's a good tip to have. So it can be challenging to get that valuation in our minds, an accurate reflection of what the business is worth, because you don't really have the same market awareness, and there's a lot of factors and variables that go into that. Your multiple could be drastically different based on the quality of the business and those transferable assets. We've also seen, and I've heard you in conversations with people talk about this idea that someone will say, my business is worth X amount because I've done this much over the last 10 years or the last 5 years. And I know you've had these conversations in mergers and acquisitions. Our exit teams have had those conversations with people about the trailing 12 months. What does that term mean, and what does that mean for the business owner?
The trailing 12 months, when I first came across that terminology from some M&A specialists that are in the mergers and acquisitions movie that I'm an executive producer on. And so what I found out is that the companies that are acquiring you, somebody buying your business, one, they're not buying you, and they're not buying what you did 5 or 10 years ago. Recently, I had somebody that I know kind of getting burnt out on their business. Couple, it was 2 partners. And when we asked them about their books and getting the last year's tax returns and a balance sheet on them, they go, well, what about the last 5 years? Well, they become burnt out, and they had taken the foot off the accelerator of the business and let things slide a little bit. And now they're looking to exit, and they're concerned because they've taken the foot off the last 12 months are critical. The trend. What is the trend of the business? What do the numbers look like? Again, they don't care what you did 5 or 10 years ago. They care about what happened recently.
Well, and that's a really good piece of advice too. Even if you're not looking to sell immediately, that's something good to keep in mind, because if you're in that situation where you're nearing the end and you're just trying to get through, you may think you've got a deal with someone, and you might be, backing up and trying to take that transition step, away from the business. But if you do so and things don't work out, then you could be in a situation where you've actually you've harmed the value of your business and what you could get out of it. Now you're having to build back in order to get to that point where you were at.
Somebody asked recently, what's the best time to sell a business? And one of my M&A specialists said this. He goes, well, if I had to answer that question, it'd be like the stock market. There's who knows? You don't never know, but sometimes it's now. Sometimes you want to get out now. Not because if you become disabled and your business suffers, if you something happens in the industry, something happens in the economy, something happens and you're burnt out. You take the foot off the gas pedal because you can't be there to run the business like you were before, and it may be a lot less valuable. There's money floating around at different points in time, so that impacts the exit as well. And we'll say it a lot of times during our podcast going forward. You've got to know the asset, how much your largest asset's worth, in order to keep building value, in order to know how much money you need to get out of the business, net of taxes and fees, in order to commingle with your personal assets and sell off into the sunset at some point in time.
No, those are really good reminders to think about. I mean, we use the phrase scale with the end in mind. And that goes to that idea of, yes, we have our picture of what we're wanting to do, and we have to continue to grow as we move towards that until that deal is done, until you're walking away with what you're needing in order to fulfill that next stage of your life and to fund that retirement plan and whatever it is that looks like for you, you've got to have an understanding of what your business is worth and keep growing as you're moving through that.
I got another thought too. So some of the M&A specialists I work with, I'm a financial advisor, part of an exit planning team, right? But I've got M&A specialists that, because of my relationship with them, that will give an estimate of value and not charge for that estimate of value. These are things that could cost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes. So if you would like to get a free valuation that Steve was just talking about, just go to our website, scaletosell.com. The link in the show notes below. You'll be able to click that link and mark on there that you would like the free valuation, and we would love to be able to get connected with you and your team to be able to make that happen. So that's a really great point. And that leads us right into today's takeaways. So our takeaways for today: it can feel confusing, especially if you're a business owner who is trying to get clarity on what their financial situation looks like and if you're able to retire. If you're feeling frustrated by that, you're not alone, right? There's a lot of people out there that are facing that confusion, but we're happy to be able to help you gain clarity in that area. We have teammates who can assess your business's value and to get you that estimate. So important for a number of things, but part of what we're going to be talking about, especially actually in our episode number 4 coming up soon, is being able to financially retire. Are you ready to do that? And having that number is going to set the stage for how you're able to do that. And so we'll definitely be talking about that more in the future. Knowing your numbers, what you could sell the business for, what your exit options look like, can really change the way in which your transition strategy looks. So again, if you're looking for an expert to help you be able to get clarity on this, to figure out what your business is worth, and to be able to make those informed decisions about the health of your company, the health of your personal financial situation, make sure you click that link below in the show notes. And we'd love to be able to get connected with you and talk to you about getting that free business valuation done. We'll see you next time on Scale to Sell.